Welcome to the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast, a presentation of Rio Country 92.1 Hank FM. Live from Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks, the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. And now, with head coach Robby Jones, here's the voice of the Bearcats, Gavin Lonnquist.
Back to the Aledo 45-yard line. Pressure's on. The pass is one-handed and caught by Caden Finley with a blocker in front with Burdine giving him the space that he needs, and he will walk it in. Touchdown, Aledo Bearcats, 55 yards. Another incredible one-handed grab from Caden Finley.
And it's becoming kind of a weekly thing with Caden Finley, especially at Tim Buchanan Stadium with these remarkable one-handed catches. And so we welcome you to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, and I'm Kevin Lonnquist. And we are here at Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks. And, of course, their other locations are at Lake Worth and in Crowley. And we're always presented to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. Number one and the 9-1 Bearcats open the 5A Division I playoffs this coming Friday against Saginaw Chisholm Trail. The Rangers are 7-3. Hank FM with all of the coverage for you. Pre-game show at 6:30. The kickoff at Tim Buchanan Stadium will be at 7 o'clock. Big podcast tonight. We'll start with head coach Robby Jones. We'll look back at the 62-0 victory over Denton High to close out the regular season. Then we'll look ahead to this week's playoff opener against Chisholm Trail. We will then be joined in our second segment by quarterback Gavin and middle linebacker Owen Henderson. Those two young men replaced key departures, and we'll see how they've kind of grown into those roles as we are now concluding the regular season and moving on to the postseason. Then it's basketball season, just a few days old. Aledo with new leadership in both programs. Donny for the girls, Brian Blackburn for the boys. All right, Coach, you couldn't have asked for a better way to close out the regular season, get in and get out kind of a situation there. You jumped on Denton High pretty quickly. Lincoln Tubbs returns the opening kickoff, 62 yards for touchdowns. You guys score 35 points in the quarter. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, that was what we talked about, all week was wanting to have a fast start, and we were able to do that. Of course, Lincoln got us going with the kickoff return, and then, of course, Lamel, right after that with the punt return, getting us down on the 1-yard line. So we, one play and offensively, and we have 14 points on the board. So, that was one of the big things that we wanted to accomplish was, have a fast start, and then let's get some of those seniors that don't get a chance to play a whole lot in the game.
What was good about this was that your notable contributors like Gavin Beard, Ray Guillory, Caden Finley, pretty much off the field by the middle of the second quarter, a few touches here and there. And in a game like this, I would think that's okay. You wanted to get them off because there's bigger things ahead for this program, you hope, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we got a long haul ahead of us. We're planning on playing 6 more games, and so we wanted to, get those guys out there, get them some touches and get them going a little bit, but then be able to get them off the field.
Maybe a little surprised that you could get them off that soon.
Yeah, I mean, we want to play a whole half with them. But with the score the way it was, we wanted to get those guys off the field. It'd be silly for us to have them on the field and get hurt when we're already up by 50 points.
Sure. And that's kind of a catch-22. I mean, because they need the game reps, but you don't want to risk injury in games that have already been decided. And I'm sure maybe the rain that was coming down on Friday and kind of was intermittent here and there played a role. And, of course, your program has handled this so many times over the course of the years playing in these types of games. Is that what's been kind of like, if you will, a secret sauce to dealing with something like this?
Dealing with
all the, with a few reps, but knowing that they've got to get the reps too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the difficult thing is you don't want to get into a situation where we get into a real serious 4-quarter ball game and they're not in good enough shape to play. So it's hard to balance that. We do a little bit of conditioning, especially on Mondays with them after practice, but. The thing is they got to get out there and get those game reps so that they stay in shape. And hopefully we get to play a full, at least 3 quarters this week.
Okay, and now one thing I want to talk about, and you've just mentioned it a few moments ago, we opened up with the kickoff return for the touchdown for Lincoln Tubbs, his second kickoff return for a score this year. And then another great punt return for Lamel Swanson. He does that just about every week, it seems like. But the one thing about your special teams is that you've had, between your defense and your offense, you've had 7 non-offensive touchdowns. That's higher than last year, I believe. And so the fact that you've gotten that kind of productivity from those 2 units is such a big bonus for what you guys want to do year in and year out.
I mean, yeah, that's big. Of course, as a former offensive play caller, you don't really like that all the time because it takes away, your guys, your offensive guys getting on the field and being able to do that because, when you get the defensive score, then the defense is right back out there. And so you lose kind of an offensive possession. But, you always want to take the points however you can get them.
Sure. And also, you've had 3 safeties this year that you guys have collected, too. So, I mean, it's a very productive thing. You guys have scored 55, I think it's 56 points now with that, or 55 based on that. I mean, it's just the way that you guys have gone about that, being opportunistic. And that's what I think one of the things that for a team like yours or any successful team, you want to capitalize on other people's mistakes and make them pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we've been able to do over the years. One of the good things that we've said that we've always been able to do is, we don't make the mistakes to beat ourselves. We allow the other team to make the mistakes. And, we want to continue to do that, make sure that we're putting ourselves in good situations and let the other team make the mistake and then take advantage of it.
Now, you were asked about this, of course, in the game last week, or 2 weeks ago, rather, against Azle. And, of course, the emergence, or I guess the reemergence of Bain Martin in your receiving crew. You talked about the injury that he dealt with earlier in the year and how he's come back from that. But the fact that, and I was kind of kidding because I think he has 3 receptions this year and all of them are touchdowns. So I kind of made the joke that all he does is catch touchdowns for you. But the fact, though, that he has come on like this and the way that how he had to work back, talk about his story a little bit and what he's gone through just to get back to this point.
Well, he was our top freshman receiver last year on the freshman team, and we actually pulled him up to get some practice time with the varsity during the playoffs last year because we knew he was, a really good, talented kid, and he had a chance to play for us as a sophomore. So, and then he went through spring ball with us with the varsity. He basically was starting at one point during spring, but then he came into the fall camp with a sports hernia and had to have surgery to get that fixed. So then that was a long recovery for him once he did get that fixed, and it kind of put him behind, and it allowed other guys to establish themselves, as the starters, and so it kind of put him behind, and now he's getting up to full speed, and he's a guy that we really want to get on the field at times.
Okay. Now, obviously, some breaking news from earlier on Monday with Ray Guillory, the talented running back who was actually a junior 2026, has decided to reclassify to a 2025. So that means he's now a senior. Of course, there's a lot of work that he has to do both online and in the classroom in order for that to happen. But unless something changes, he will not return for 2026. So that would have been his senior year. You were aware that this could happen. This is more of an off-season situation to deal with. But what's kind of important for your program and him, since this is kind of like his last run with you, if everything goes the way they're kind of hoping it would be?
Yeah, I mean, it's not 100% yet. He still has a lot of work to do as far as getting some classwork done and all that. His dad came and talked to me about it a couple weeks ago, so I knew that it was a possibility. Ray and I haven't really talked about it yet. But, there are some schools that are, wanting him to do it. And some of the schools that probably, if he did go play his senior year, those schools might not be able to get him, So, it's just a trickle-down effect for what's going on with college football with, the NIL stuff and all that. And so, you saw it with Quinn Ewers a few years ago. So, right. It's something that could happen. We just need to make sure that Ray, is staying focused, and it's still, about the team this year. And I think it is. He showed up to practice this morning and went through practice, and then he was at weights this afternoon. And so I think, he's gearing up for a long playoff run, and is going to do a really good job for us through the playoffs. And then we'll see, kind of how everything falls, with all that. But that is his plan right now.
All right. And the reclassification for these players, it's been more on the college basketball side with top high school prospects, those who are playing at the high school level, or maybe like an IMG Academy down in Florida or other type of programs like that. But yet you mentioned, of course, the Quinn Ewers situation there, where we're starting to see more of a trickle-down effect where it's impacting football more and more. Do you see that becoming more and more of a situation with national type of recruits, what you're seeing like with Ray and maybe others at other programs?
Yeah, I think you can, especially when people become high-profile, players as young as what Ray did, as a sophomore. And that could probably, start happening more often. But, we'll see what happens.
And then the NIL factor on that, how big of a factor is that, do you believe?
I think it's a big factor. The fact that, they're telling these young kids that, hey, look, if you could get, yourself graduated a year early, you're going to earn so much money, with NIL and all that. And so, the kids see the dollar signs and, sometimes they'll run to that.
Sure. All right, so let's turn our attention to this week against Chisholm Trail. The Rangers are 7-3. Kind of some history for them, which is really kind of fun. This is their first ever playoff appearance. It's also their first winning season in school history. They started playing varsity football back in 2012. What kind of strikes you, what you saw on tape on Rickland Holmes Ball Club?
They got some really good football players on their side of the ball. And number 8 is the guy that kind of stood out to me. If you watch them on offense, number 8 is the guy that they want to get the ball to. And I can't tell you his name. I think it's Omar Johnson or something like that. But, and you watch start breaking down all of their pass plays and trying to figure out, what they're doing in the pass game. And it's almost like every time they throw the ball, it's designed to go to him. Screens, everything, designed to go to number 8. So he's a big-time player for them. And then he also plays safety on defense, and he makes some plays on defense for them as well. So, they've got some good football players over there, and he's one of the main ones.
Yeah, and for Johnson, he's nearing 1,000 yards for this season. He's at 972 for the Rangers. And you talked about, obviously, Joey McGowan is their starting quarterback, although he got hurt, apparently, in their season finale against Saginaw High, did not play in the second half. And that's kind of an interesting question there for you guys, because you kind of have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. You could see him, you may not. You have to look for the backup here. And so how do you guys go about doing that?
Yeah, and what we noticed was there wasn't a whole lot of change in what they were doing offensively, from quarterback to quarterback. So, you get to basically just prepare for what they want to do and what they do best.
And their top running back is a gentleman by the name of William Quintana Rodriguez, over 1,100 yards for the year, 1,147 to be exact. He's averaging more than 8.5 yards a carry, 12 touchdowns. What strikes you about him when he's carrying the football?
And he's got some speed, and then when he gets loose into the secondary, nobody's running him down. So, he's a good hard runner. They do a really good job with some of the schemes to get him open into the open field, and then he's hard to guy to chase down.
The one thing when I was looking at their defense too is the fact that they appear to be pretty opportunistic. They've recorded 18 sacks, they've created 17 turnovers, 7 interceptions, 10 fumble recoveries, things that you believe that your offense has to be careful of to just make sure that you don't give them any reason to maybe feel like they've got a chance to pull this off on Friday night.
Right. We don't want to turn over the football. And that's one of the things. If you go back to last year's by-district game, we started the game off and had 4 fumbles in the first 6 offensive snaps.
Remember that, yep.
Yeah, we want to make sure that, taking care of the football is one of the main things that we're doing. That's always stressed. We always want to take care of the football, and then also, the fact that they do have some sacks, we want to make sure we're protecting our quarterback.
That was the famous sleeve game, too, against Colleen Shoemaker, where everyone had to get out their sleeves because they were holding the ball and the ball was not being secured. And then all of a sudden you see these medical scissors being used to cut off all these sleeves. And then that problem went away just like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of cold, and raining. And so the guys wanted to wear their sleeves. And so, they wear those slick sleeves. And it makes it hard to hold on to the football. So, yeah, they got the scissors out and started cutting those sleeves off.
What did you like about your team just getting ready today, and what do you want to see from them as they're preparing for this game? Because even though you all are going to be heavy favorites in this game, you can't treat it any differently than, say, if you were playing in the 3rd round of the playoffs or even playing for a state championship game.
No, I thought we had a really good Monday practice, and so the level of, preparation and the level of intensity and the level of focus, when you go into the playoffs, it's got to be, at an all-time high, and I thought it was today. I think one of the things was they were excited the fact that there were some freshmen out there going against them and some scout team. And I talked to them and said, look, we don't need to scare these freshmen off. We don't want them to quit on us and things like that. But, yeah, the freshmen get out there and go against the varsity guys and kind of see where they are. And I think it was kind of a eye-opening experience for some of them because, they were the big dog all year, just playing the freshmen. And then they have to go up against the varsity in practice. And they got to see that, hey, look, I got a lot of work to do.
And speaking of your sub-varsity programs, give me just an overall assessment of how – I mean, it's always been very successful seasons year after year with your sub-varsities, 2 freshman teams, 2 JV teams, but just an overall thought of what you saw from those 4 squads this year.
I mean, they all did a great job. The JVA team went 10-0. The JVB team only had 8 games because we had to combine with the A team twice, and they went 8-0 as well. Freshman teams each lost 1 game. So, the future is bright. We've got good players down there on the JV level, and so we're just looking for those guys to continue to progress and get stronger and faster, so that they can contribute on the varsity in the next couple of years.
For those of you hearing this podcast for the first time, of course, there's a ton of streaks with Aledo that we can talk about. The fact that the national district winning streak is now at 127. That stays right where it is until the 2025 season. 29th consecutive year for this program to make the playoffs. 31st consecutive winning season for this program, and you're going for consecutive win number 28 in the opening round of the playoffs. So no pressure on that one to keep that streak going.
No pressure at all. I knew that when I took the job, that there's no pressure as far as all these streaks are concerned. We just got to maintain our focus and continue to work hard as we can and get things done.
If there is one thing about, and we'll close with this, if there was one thing about what you have seen from the opener against Geyer to what you saw even against Denton High on Friday, what's been the biggest change for the right reasons for this team?
We quit making the mistakes that beat us in that first game. We made the mistakes, and we talked about that earlier. We want to, play a fundamental game and let the other team make mistakes, and we were the ones that made the mistakes in that game, and our guys have corrected all those mistakes, and we've continued to get better week after week, and just getting on a roll right now, and I think the last couple of games have kind of shown that, and we're going to get into the playoffs and hopefully just keep getting better.
And if the Bearcats are able to do that, they will move on to the area round against either Abilene High or El Paso Parkland. They're also kicking off at the same time this coming Friday night at 7 o'clock at Shotwell Stadium over in Abilene. And, of course, if the Bearcats and Abilene wind up facing each other, those playoff details will be announced once everything gets collected. That seems to be kind of up in the air right now anyway, so we'll get to that as we move closer to that. But first things first with Chisholm Trail Rangers. Coach, thanks so much for the time.
Oh, thank you.
All right, this Aledo Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Knife Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training. H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And by Hiley Mazda. Looking for a new ride? Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth has you covered. Right now, get $3,500 off MSRP or 0% interest for 36 months on the 5-star safety-rated CX-5 and CX-30. Hurry in, these offers won't last long. Experience top-notch service and unbeatable deals in their new state-of-the-art facility in Fort Worth, or check out their extensive Mazda lineup at HileyMazdaofFortWorth.com. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family-owned and operated for more than 30 years. Stick around on the second segment of this special 3-segment Aledo Coaches Show podcast. We'll have two of the elder statesmen for this team, quarterback Gavin Beard, as well as middle linebacker Owen Henderson. Podcast returns following this timeout.
On this 3rd and 4, it is a give. Wide open running room is Wingfield inside the 30, inside the 20, down to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, and he gets into the end zone. Touchdown, Aledo Bearcats.
And that was one of the touchdowns that the Bearcats scored in the first half of their 62-0 victory over Denton High to close out the regular season. We welcome you back to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast here on 92.1 Hank FM in time for our second segment. But before we start that second segment, we'll give you the Aledo Alumni Report. We'll start off with Jake Gillespie, the safety at Stephen F. Austin. Of course, he was on the state championship team last year. To this point, he has collected 3 total tackles. Stephen F. Austin at 6-4 with a big game this Saturday against Incarnate Word. And then another member from this state championship team from last year in Cooper Cohan, defensive tackle down at Blinn College in Brenham. They just finished their season at 4-5. But for his first year there, Cooper had 16 tackles, collected 3 sacks, along with 5.5 tackles for loss. So a good start for Cooper on there. So we welcome to now this second segment of the Coaches Show. To my immediate left is middle linebacker Owen Henderson, and to my far left is quarterback Gavin Beard. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so I'm going to start calling you, Owen, the immediate turnover machine, since you got turnovers at a couple straight weeks. But I'm going to throw this question open to both you and Gavin here about just what this season has been like from what you've learned about it. And so I'll start with you, just from, because I had you right on it. I think I had you on leading up to Geyer. And so now you've had 10 weeks to kind of process what you've accomplished and what you've seen. So take us through what you've seen from that game and then how this team has gotten to this point, trying to make another run to the state championship game.
Well, yes, sir. The year didn't start off like we wanted it to. We don't really expect to lose ever. But, we've been through a lot, and we battled adversity, and, we've came together really strong, and I'm really looking forward to the playoffs and what we can do.
All right, Gavin, what about for you?
I think when we first started out the season, we were really nervous going into that game just because there was a lot of new kids on varsity. A lot of juniors is filled with our team this year. But I know we've battled this year, and we've really grown a brotherhood in the locker room, and I think it showed on the field.
All right, couple of statistics for these young men here. First of all, for Owen, 47 total tackles, 2 interceptions. You didn't get into the return game though for the touchdown, so you got to work on that part. So just kidding about that. And then for Gavin, he's thrown for 1,640 yards, 23 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, completing 67% of his attempts so far this year. Okay, so let's talk about the games of decision that were decided in the second half. Those were the games where you trailed by double digits against Denton Ryan on October 4th, and then 3 weeks later against Richland. And Gavin, I'm going to go with you because this is where this offense really needed to get things moving here to get the mount the comeback here. And I want to talk a little bit about. Let's start with the Ryan game because you guys had the kickoff return that kind of got things going in the right direction when you trailed by 19, but then the offense just had that surge in the third quarter. What changed for that offense, do you think, just from where you guys were prior to this game or even through the first half against Ryan to where you are now?
Yeah, so we went in the locker room at halftime, and we were still focused. We weren't worried about the score. We knew we were going to come out and come out with the win, but we just had to stay focused with the game plan and, just continue what we were doing on the field.
Okay, and then for you, Owen, what did you kind of see? What was the difference? Because obviously the defense has got to make some stops too and get the ball back and help, do its part so that the offense can rally, that sort of thing.
Yes, sir. Well, the defense, we gave up more points than we wanted to. But, we never hung our heads, man. We all believe in each other, and we all believe in our jobs. And when we're all doing our job and making adjustments at halftime, we come out stronger than ever. The one thing, and I'll touch on the Richland game here with you, Gavin, is the fact that you guys were down 28-14 late second quarter, and you guys get the ball back around your 36, 35-yard line. Didn't have any timeouts, about 55 seconds to go, and you take it down and score without a timeout. What did that show you about that drive and what this offense's explosiveness and capability?
Yeah, that was a really big drive in the game. We needed that to win the game. But that just showed we could move the ball. I mean, we were getting down the red zone. We just weren't able to punch it in for 6. But yeah, it just showed that we can move the ball on this team and that we're a good football team. We have good offense and talent surrounding us. We just gotta execute and put the ball in the end zone. So
to piggyback on that game against Richland, your defense, this defense collected 3 consecutive turnovers against Cates, and he's a really good quarterback there. But when you guys were able to kind of get some more pressure on him, Owen, how did that kind of change just how they were doing things offensively and that sort of thing?
Yes, sir. Well, I believe our defense starts with our D-line. And, they got fired up in that second half. They really started getting after the quarterback. And Ben forced 2 turnovers, man. He was playing his butt off for sure.
All right, so I want to talk about the wide range of emotions of that fourth quarter against Richland is the fact that, number one, you guys finally get the lead because you trailed throughout, had it tied once, but you guys trailed throughout. You get the lead with about 3.5 minutes to go. Then they score with a minute to go in regulation, and then you guys wind up going to overtime there. So just take us through the emotional ups and downs of those last 3.5 minutes, the jubilation of taking the lead, the kind of like the disappointment of going to overtime where they were thinking about going for 2. And I'll ask you about that here in a second here, Owen. But just going through those waves of emotions and just trying to keep it centered on that. How difficult is that, Gavin?
I mean, we knew we had to come. We had the mindset that we had to score no matter what if they did score or not. How much time we have left?
I think you had a minute. They scored but you had about 3.5 minutes to go when you took the lead, and then they scored with about a little more than a minute to go, like 1:02 or something like that.
Yeah. So no matter if they did score or not, we had the mentality that hey, we did score. We got to go back out there and continue to execute and get the ball in the end zone.
All right, and then for you, Owen, just in terms of just the wave of emotion there, because not only that, when they score with a minute to go, they were thinking about going for 2. They opted against it, but just take us through what you're thinking there in those moments of pretty much total stress.
Yeah, for sure. That's what's special about Aledo. None of us ever panic. And, you know, when times are tough like that game was, they were giving us fits. You know, we all trust each other. And if they would have gone for 2, I had full confidence in my guys that we would have stopped them.
Okay, and then in the overtime period, when they get down to your 5 and you guys are able to make a stop, I think the key was on the 3rd down play where they were close and then thrown back for a yard loss on that. That probably, and then they have the bad throw in the end zone because of the pressure. What did that stand mean? Just the overall scope of this, where this defense has come along this year.
Stand was everything, man. We never give up. And again, on that 3rd down, Ben made a huge play.
Okay, and then for you on the offensive position in the overtime, it's just handing it off to number 1, but at the same time, you got to execute too, and so that's the important thing too, is making sure that everyone hits their assignments on this.
Yeah, for sure. We had to go out there and execute. I knew when the quarterback threw it out of bounds and we got the ball on our own 25, I knew we were going to get in the end zone win the football game.
How would you assess, Gavin, just from your personal standpoint, just self-scout yourself in terms of where you were from Geyer to where you are now? Where do you think your strengths are, and what are areas that you're still trying to work on to become better at?
You know, at the beginning of the season, I was kind of looking at one guy. I was looking at Finn majority of the time.
Pretty good guy to look at.
Yeah, for sure. But I've kind of opened it to more guys and just going through my reads and my progressions and letting the game slow down for me as the game continues on. But yeah, I think I'm still continuing to get better with that, and then making plays outside the pocket, like the little flick plays and whatnot. Just trying to make plays outside, just throwing inside the pocket.
And now those yard ball plays too. I called it the yard ball, the touchdown to Ray Guillory on that one that covered about 20 some odd yards on that. And again, the cool thing about that play was the fact that Ray kind of hung with you, and I think he tapped you on the shoulder and said something like, "If it comes this way, I'm going to be here." Just kind of take us, because he talked about that when he was on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. So now, since you're here, I want you to tell me your side of things when he came to you, and then what you saw, and then how that play kind of came to itself.
Yeah, so they were blitzing all game, and Ray was saying he was open on the check downs, like on big 3rd downs. I'm pretty sure it was 3rd down and 14 or something like that.
Yes.
So I dropped back, saw nothing. But before the play, he had checked me on the shoulder. He was like, "Gavin, check arrow, check arrow." I was like, all right, I got you. And so I dropped back. There was nothing there. I kind of rolled it to my right, saw him. Wasn't really able to turn and throw, just kind of flipped to him and then needed the rest and made a play.
Now, you've done that flip thing a couple times here. I don't know if that's something that's a practice you want to continue, but it's worked a couple times too. So, but you kind of have to use your best judgment for something like that, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's not ideal, kind of just flipping it out there like that, but I'm just trying to make plays as best as I can.
Okay, and then for Owen, this defense has really turned it up in terms of creating turnovers. Last year's defense was good, obviously, but they didn't have a huge advantage in the turnover ratio. I think they were ±1 throughout the year. You guys are already +6, and the fact that you guys have created a lot of these extra opportunities, what's been the focus of emphasis so that you all can put yourselves in a position to create that, whether that's with an interception like you with the 2 or just with a fumble recovery, something like that?
Yes, sir. Well, we started practicing harder a couple weeks ago, and Coach McCone really fired us up the last couple of weeks. He cares more about the game than any of us do, and he's a great coach. I love him, but turnovers are a big key to the game, and he emphasizes that a lot.
All right, so I want to ask you just from a personal responsibility standpoint, if you will. I mean, you guys replaced 2 guys that were, had hallmark playing times here. I mean, for you, Gavin, it was Haas Haney, and then for you, Owen, it was Devon Keys. We talked about that. I mean, and feeling that, it's not so much a case where you have to say, I have to make them forget what the other guy did, but filling those shoes and the responsibility that comes with playing that type of position. What's it been like dealing with that and then just going about your work every day? I'll start with you on this, Owen.
Yes, sir. Well, obviously, Devon was a great role model. He was a great leader. He taught me a lot last year, and he told me that my day would come. And, when he left, it was sad, but all my guys around me really encouraged me, and I got to work in the off season. I got to work over the summer, and I thought it's turned out really well for me.
Okay, and then for you, Gavin.
Yeah, like he was saying, Devon was a tremendous player, but Haas was a tremendous player as well. He kind of handed over the keys last year, and he's been an amazing player to watch and sit behind my freshman and sophomore year, But yeah, he's a tremendous player, great leader on and off the field. He's kind of showed me how to lead a football team in the locker room and off the locker room and out of the locker room. But just how to communicate with people and do interviews like this, just the little things that comes with being a quarterback and the quarterback of Aledo Bearcats.
Okay, so now do we all, because if you'll notice here on the podcast, for those of you who are joining us, these two young men are in their blonde hair. It's playoff. That's when you know you're in playoff season. Everyone's got the blonde hair work on in the locker room. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I just want to make sure that that everyone's accounted for. Okay, this approach to the playoffs, and of course, you never take it for granted because you're not guaranteed to return every year, although I think a lot of people in eastern Parker County would kind of feel like it's just kind of like death taxes, Aledo going to the playoffs, that kind of thing. But what's kind of been the mindset, because it seemed like after the Richland scare, if you will, that once you got to Azle and, of course, last week with Denton High, that it became a locked-in mentality. It was like, all right, we know what's ahead of us here. Just talk about that, Gavin.
Yeah, we played really well these past 2 games, and we've built up a lot of momentum, and we just got to keep the momentum throughout the playoffs. It's a whole different season, so we got to think about just restarting and 0-0 our record, and we just got to play with that mentality every snap, and especially in practice, like the details matter more than anything because if you lose, you go home.
Owen, do you feel like it's kind of like a one-game season every time? This week it's Saginaw Chisholm Trail, and if you're fortunate enough to get through that, then it could be Abilene or El Paso Park. Just talk about that in terms of what that means, like just the gravity of saying, this is it, we're not guaranteed next week, that sort of thing.
Yes, sir. We take every game one at a time, and we game plan for every team one at a time. But Coach Jones tells us every single week to be the standard, and I believe that we, execute, get the game plan, and go out there and play great on Fridays.
What do you think is the playing to a standard? Because obviously you guys were, from a talent standpoint, there was a huge difference between you all and Azle and Denton High, but it's about not playing the score, but just playing to a standard. How do you feel like you all hit that mark, hit that benchmark, if you will? I'll start with you on this, Gavin.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it shows we've been playing the standard. I mean, I'm coming out of the game at second quarter, past 2 games. But if we just go out there and execute and stick to the game plan like Owen was saying, then, I mean, we're gonna do pretty well throughout these playoffs.
And then for you, Owen, just playing to that standard rather than the opponent, that sort of thing, or the scoreboard.
Yes, sir. Just like Gavin said, the last 2 weeks, we were able to put it on those teams early, and that's what we want. We want that snowball rolling downhill, just like Coach McCone always says. We're excited, and it's playoff time, baby.
All right, sounds good. All right, to my immediate left is middle linebacker Owen Henderson. To my far left is quarterback Gavin Beard. Let's hear it for these 2 young men. And we want to remind you that the Aledo Coaches Show podcast is a presentation of H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And by Hiley Mazda, looking for a new ride, Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth has you covered. Right now, get $3,500 off MSRP or 0% interest for 36 months on the 5-star safety-rated CX-5 and CX-30. Hurry in, these offers won't last long. Experience top-notch service and unbeatable deals in their new state-of-the-art facility in Fort Worth, or check out their extensive Mazda lineup at HileyMazdaofFortWorth.com. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family-owned and operated since 1999. And we want to remind you that our third segment of the podcast coming up here with the new basketball coaches for both the boys and girls programs, Donny of the girls and Brian Blackburn of the boys will be joining us here. Stick around, podcast with our bonus segment coming up next. Final segment of the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. And yes, the high school basketball season is underway for both the boys and girls programs. New leadership for both of these programs. We're joined now by, I'm going to say veterans, but first year, or I guess I'm going to call you guys rookie coaches here, at least from Aledo's standpoint. Boys basketball coach Brian Blackburn and new girls basketball coach Donny. Thanks, guys, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. This is a great honor to be here. Appreciate it.
All right. And we want to let you know, too, that this podcast with these 2 gentlemen, along with players from their teams, won this podcast for however long it lasts for football season. Of course, everybody hoping that it's going to run right up until the end of the first semester. But when we get the podcast resuming all the way through in January, these 2 gentlemen and players from their teams are going to be joining us for the duration of the basketball season and what we hope will be long playoff runs for both of these programs too. So guys, thank you. Real quickly here on both of these teams, the girls are off to a 2-0 start. They have wins over Pinkston out of the DISD and over Alvarado. They did add a game against Mansfield Timberview at 7 o'clock tomorrow on Tuesday night. That's going to be over in Mansfield. And then Friday at home against Burleson. That's a 6 o'clock first tip. And also a little bit of good news, too, because this girls basketball program just entered the Texas Association of Basketball Coaches girls 5A poll at number 24. So congratulations to you on that, Coach Ott.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it so much.
And then for Coach Blackburn, you all are off to a 1-0 start. You beat a usually pretty solid program in Decatur there. You won 84-62. Their season continues on Tuesday night. They're going to be over at Euless Trinity. That's a 7:30 first tip, give or take, depending on how all the sub-varsity programs do. Okay, so let's just talk about the opportunities here running these programs here. And we'll start with you on this, Donny. When you saw this opportunity, you were talking to Brandy Belk about this opportunity to coach the Aledo girls basketball program. What struck you about this?
Well, I have known about Aledo for a while. I was at North Crowley for 9 years. And so I know the history of Aledo and have been around it in the area. And, when the job opened, I spoke with Brandy about it in depth, and I really liked the opportunity of just coming up here and raising my family. I've got 2 daughters, and I think this is such a great community to plug into, and knowing that they're a Bearcat from the time they entered, 4th grade all the way up. And so it's just a lot of fun knowing that. And then also, honestly, when I heard Brian was going to get the boys' job, that meant a lot to me to consider that when I was coming here, because I think it's a great setup when you can work with somebody who you have a lot of respect for and that you have known for a long time. And I think it just makes things a lot easier when you can coincide and work hand in hand. So that was a big draw. And I've just enjoyed that opportunity to work with him every day and see him grow his program as well.
Okay, so Brian, same question for you about just the attraction of the Aledo boys job here. What kind of sold you on this?
I think it's pretty unique to be a one-horse town, and coming from multiple high school districts, Mansfield, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, and so the idea is to kind of build your program from the ground up, and we're able to do that at Aledo. Obviously, Brandy reaching out and having a basketball background is really important. And then, like Donny mentioned, I think my dad and Donny coached against each other, and my dad was kind of one of his mentors on the boys' side. And so, having worked basketball camp with him, and so just kind of like building a basketball community. We've seen what football's been able to do and all the state championships, all the success. And so we want to be able to parlay that in boys basketball. And as Aledo gets bigger, we'll have more opportunities to do that. And it's kind of rung true so far this year.
And these two gentlemen know a thing or two about guiding their programs to, whether they're an assistant head coach or even a head coach, about playing for the state tournament down in San Antonio. Like, for instance, with Coach Ott last year at Summer Creek out of the Summer Creek, a high school out of the Humble ISD. They were a 6A state semifinalist, and then prior to that, you were the head girls basketball coach and athletic academic coordinator at Cedar Park High School in the Leander ISD for 6 years. And all that program did was go back-to-back, winning 5A state championships in 2021 and 2022 with a perfect 37-0 season in 21-22. And then you also had a 63-game winning streak from 2020-2021 to the 21-22 season. So that was very Aledo-like of you to have that sort of streak going for you. And that was actually the nation's second longest active public school winning streak at the time. So I think the expectations are for both of you guys, we're not ending our seasons in February. We're going down to play in March. Is that kind of the plan here? Or just talk, first of all, congratulations on that run there. I mean, what was that like to even go through something like that?
Just listening to the boys speak earlier, it reminded me of like one of the things that you try to do. You just try to stay in that moment and just take it one game at a time, And, we never really got wrapped up in, this is number 57, this is number 58. It was like the guys said earlier, it's just all about taking it one game at a time and just staying in that moment and working on what you have to do to get yourself better and not so much about what everybody else is worried about. And so I think, we were just really committed on that after year one, finishing it with 27-1 in that state championship. We felt like that next year we had a really good shot because we returned a lot. I think we just had to stay grounded and stay committed because the process is continual. It doesn't stop just because you win one. So think that was very important for us, and it taught us a lot, and me personally a lot as a coach.
Okay, and then for Brian here, obviously no shortage there as well, because last year as the associate head coach for Lake Ridge High School in 23-24, that team was also a state semifinalist in the 6A bracket, and then prior to that you served as the head varsity boys basketball coach at Boswell High School up in Saginaw. Then you were at Wall for 6 seasons, and then at Whitewright for another 2. So in that run, of course, you were part of those great Flower Mound Marcus programs that featured Marcus Smart, who's having a tremendous NBA career between Boston and now with the Memphis Grizzlies here. So just in those experiences of winning state championships at Marcus and then being a part of what happened with Lake Ridge getting down to the state tournament, is there a common denominator that you see in those things, Brian, that kind of take hold that you hope to carry forward here in Eastern Parker County?
The common denominators are lots of talent, talented players that make coaches look really, really good. But, I think the commitment level is something that's kind of across the board. Once a group of guys believe that they can be great, then it's really hard to stop them. And so that was kind of common at Marcus. They had done it before, and so when you have someone like Marcus Smart, who's a great leader, and it's a player-led team rather than a coach-led team. If something's going wrong in practice, the players are correcting themselves. That was pretty unique. But I think at both spots, last year at Lake Ridge and then obviously at Marcus, and then some of the success we had out in St. Angelo Wall, the teams were player-led and you had a lot of talent. And so then as coaches, they were bought into us because they knew they had a lot of ownership in the program, and so that was super helpful.
Coaches will say so many times to their teams, this is your team, it's not my team, it's your team. Now that might sound like lip service, but it's also, there's some validity to it. But Donny, I want you to kind of go into what that truly means, kind of put the substance behind that statement.
Well, first, Brian's not going to tell you, but it does take athletes. But they were, we played them in the regional finals when he was at Marcus and I was at North Crowley, and I sat on that bench and watched. And his staff, they were phenomenal at what they did, and it was hard to say we weren't not as equally talented athletically. And so there is a coaching element that goes into it. So Brian needs to make sure that he understands, his staff and the staffs that he's been a part of have been phenomenal. The player idea, you give them a pathway, you give them what you hope they take on, and ultimately, you want to give them some ownership so that they can feel that they're a part of it. Because once you feel you're a part of it and you know the why and what you're doing, you'll end up pouring a lot more into it. So if you can get your leaders to understand that there is some ownership and that there is a why. Why are you doing this? Why am I putting this in your ball or the ball in your court? Why am I having you do this? Is because of this. And I think when they understand that, they can buy in a whole lot more. And I think that their opportunity for success after that is endless.
Okay, and Brian, you can piggyback off of that comment and what that means to you.
Yeah, I think, it's always bigger than basketball. It's bigger than football. It's, the guys end up building a brotherhood. And so, the experiences that these guys have, whether it's a state championship, whether it's, a district championship, whatever those experiences are, in 20 years when you guys come back and hang out with your friends, you can just pick up right where you left off. And like my college teammates from Texas A&M, we were lucky enough to make a Sweet 16. And we get together, I don't know, once every 3 or 4 years, but every time we get together, we pick up just like we're in a college locker room. Mm-hmm. And so I think, when you build those bonds, it's just really unique, and it's something that sport kind of gives us that maybe other avenues don't. So I'm not just hanging out with other English teachers from other school districts. It's more of a bond. And so I think that's kind of what we want to build, and if we can kind of get them to see that now, then it'll just carry over as the guys grow up. All
right, so I'm going to ask you both about just giving us a little bit of a rundown of your team, just kind of a breakdown of who's returning, who are the players that you are expecting to, and what you're expecting out of this big highlights of your non-conference or your non-district season, rather, and then obviously the district that you're in. I'll start with you, Donny, on what you see from this team and what you hope to accomplish moving forward.
Got a lot of really good talent that came back from last year. They were young last year, so they returned a lot. At this time right now, we're getting a lot of experience because 2 of our senior leaders are playing volleyball right now. And, we're hoping that after they win the state title, they'll bring that success over to us and just kind of continue to bleed into our program. And, so we have some seniors that will be coming out that I think can contribute. But right now, I think the experiences is we're getting a lot of experience with our sophomore and our juniors right now, and we got a couple really good seniors that are strong leaders right now within the program. So I think once we get those two seniors out, I think it's just going to continue to build on where we're at. We've had a strong start. We played a really good fall season here. We hosted a fall league here at Aledo. We had some really good quality teams here. We had Brock and Lipan and Bridgeport, and we had some really good teams here that allowed us to kind of start a foundation of competing. And we scheduled some hard preseason games to make sure we push them. We're going to Timberview, like I said, Tuesday. Next week we're going to the Hub City tournament up in Lubbock, which we'll see some really high-quality state-ranked teams up there. And then over Christmas we're going to go to the Duncanville tournament, the Sandra Meadows tournament, which is
legendary.
Yeah, it's going on for 75-plus years. And our first game's against Pearland, where they're a top 15 team in 6A. So, we want to make sure that we challenge them through the preseason and hopefully make our district seem like it's easier, as with those experiences in preseason. So I'm hoping that we can get out of preseason with a good mentality to attack district. Just looking at our district, we weren't picked to win it, which bothers me a lot. So we've kind of really used that as an intrinsic motivation right now to get our kids to understand that we've got some work still to do. People feel like Brewer and Fossil Ridge are better right now, and so that's exciting for us to go in and prove people wrong. So we're looking forward to that.
All right, and I'm not going to ask you to single out a couple players for people to watch, but I am going to ask you to single out a couple players to watch.
So we've got some really good ones right now that are playing well. Liz Griffin is a junior guard, returned from last year. She's been on varsity since her freshman year. She's a great shooter. We're pushing her to be a 3-level scorer right now to not just rely on the jump shot, to go to the rack some. So that's been good for her. We'll get Kinley Elms out of volleyball, which she's a big-time post player for us, so to add some size. And, Ella coming out of volleyball will be a good addition. And Brooke Dempsey has been a great leader for us as a sophomore, her and Kate Jackson. We had a young lady come in this year as a junior, Tiara Butler, has been really good for us. And got a great leaders with Augie and Becca, some seniors that have kind of really been pushing those kids to hold the standard, And so I think there's just a really good combination of some kids right now that I don't really know if I've singled out one just leader right now. I think they're all really trying to push each other in that way and just kind of let the process unfold. But I'm excited about those kids for sure.
Okay, so Brian, you're up next. So let's just talk basically cover the same ground that he did.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, one game in, it's kind of hard to tell, scrimmages, fall and everything. We're still trying to figure out, with our style of play, we're going to try to score a lot of points and kind of push the pace a little bit. And first game, Joaquin Pacheco is a senior. He had 30 points and 13 rebounds and kind of led us there offensively. And then our junior post player, Town Van Huysen, had 22 points and 8 rebounds. And so, everybody kind of played off of those guys the first game. And, scoring 84 points, obviously the pace is pretty high. So we have to use our depth. And we have some, some new guys to Aledo and some guys that were on JV last year that, we're trying to put them in spots where they can kind of be successful offensively and defensively. And, everything right now for us so much is effort-based. And so we have quite, some smaller guards and guys that can shoot it. And so we're trying to kind of push the pace and get them some open shots in transition. We were able to do that Saturday. If we can do that again tomorrow night, then I think the guys will continue to kind of buy into how we're trying to play, which may be a little bit different than what they've done in the past. So I think right now, Towns and Joaquin, have kind of been leading the team statistically. But, every day in practice, we stat practice. And so basically there's a plus-minus score for every player on varsity. And so based off of those scores, we kind of can see who's been playing well and who's been practicing well. And, we'll continue to do that, keep things competitive, and then, the cream rises to the top. So the guys that have the biggest plus-minus score, they get to pick the jerseys that we're going to wear for that game, and then, they'll have a chance to be a starter and a team captain. And so that's kind of a day-to-day basis, and it's it's a pretty competitive environment.
Other highlights in your non-district schedule?
Yeah, I think going out to the Canes Classic in Abilene, they host a really good tournament. 16-team tournament. It's all 5As and 6As. North Crowley's been in that tournament before. Some private schools out of Lubbock that are pretty successful, and so that'll be a big-time tournament for us. we have a back-to-back games that are going to be pretty unique right before Thanksgiving break. Midlothian Heritage will come here on a Monday and play, and they're usually ranked in 5A.
Sure.
And then Eagle Mountain, which is a new school, they'll come out here on Tuesday and play. And so those back-to-back games will kind of tell us a lot about our team right before Thanksgiving break. So kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, and one thing about Toller, one thing about Eagle Mountain's new basketball coach, heaven help me, I forgot his name.
Scott Richardson. Yeah,
Scott Richardson. He did a great job at Toller in his tenure there. Got him to the playoffs every single year that he was there. 2 years ago, he took Toller to the state quarterfinals before I think they lost to Peaster, their district rival, in the and maybe it wasn't Peaster, but they lost.
They lost to Lipan.
They lost to Lipan, who everybody loses to Lipan because they've been winning like 100 straight state championships there or something like that, something crazy. But anyway, Scott does a tremendous job, and I think he'll do a great job there at Eagle Mountain, and because of what he did at Toller, and so that'll be a great experience for you guys. Final question for both of you gentlemen here, as far as you move forward here, is there anything specific about a first year? There's an excitement of it. There's a newness of it. You kind of get to mold it like clay, and then you kind of get to, and you're kind of working with house money a little bit, where you kind of get to see where it all unfolds, and then you can kind of get it going. Or do you see it like that? Or how do you view a first season running a new program? I'll start with you on this, Donny.
To me, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge because, you have a lot that you feel like you need to accomplish right away, especially coming here. I felt like there was a lot that we needed to put in place. We needed to put a premium on getting our young kids involved in basketball, getting them opportunities to be in the gym, trying to grow some interest in the younger levels. So you try to think of ways to do that, and then you're trying to think of ways to make sure you're challenging your older kids. And so there's a lot that you feel like you want to accomplish, and I think what you have to do is you just have to prioritize what is important right now that you feel like you can accomplish at this time, and not overwhelm yourself with so many things that you don't do anything right. You have a lot of great ideas, but you don't do anything right. So I think that's what the biggest challenge for me right now is, just to make sure that's what we're doing, because between Brian and I, we talk every single day and every single night about things that we want to do, that we want to try to grow here. But then, we have to take a step back and say, okay, is this worth it right now? And is it going to sacrifice what we're trying to do immediately? But I think that, from the standpoint of success on the court, obviously, in my position, it's more of a personal thing to me. I want to make sure that I put a good product out for every school that I'm at, every season I'm at. I want the community to be proud of what we put out there. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that. So I don't really need like a new job to motivate me in that regards. You know what I mean? Like it's like I feel like I need to do that every year. And obviously you want to have success. And so I'm hoping that we can continue to pour into our young kids, continue to do the things that we've been doing on the court. And I think that we'll continue to see the success that we're having right now, I hope.
All right, and then for you, Brian?
For me, it was building relationships. I think that's super important in today's day and age of athletics. So, before I could coach a kid on how to jump stop, shot fake, dribble attack off, whatever, they needed to know that I cared about them. And so I think, building relationships before championships is really important. And so I think once the guys kind of saw that I cared and, they could, talk to me about certain things and that I would, ask questions and care about them off the court, it's been a lot easier to get them to buy into how we're trying to play and what we're trying to do on the court. And so a lot of that relationship building to start things off, and then, get that with the players, get that with the parents, get that with the community. And so the relationships have been, easy to build. And then, I try to bring my family around as much as possible. I have my own starting five at home. I got 5 kids under the age of 11. And so, having our players, having our parents see my family around has been helpful too. And so just kind of trying to build like our own basketball family.
Okay. And, between you and your wife, when you and your wife are dealing with your 5 kids, what the best strategy for that is? It's its own defense.
Yeah.
For that. Exactly.
The best strategy is to go to work. It's a lot easier.
All right. And then for Donny, we're actually hoping that your roster continues to suffer that shortfall because the volleyball team is playing on Tuesday night out in Snyder, a top 6 matchup. That'll be against number 3 Amarillo. Aledo is number 6. Claire Gay's program having a wonderful season here. Hope they can get to the regional finals. And like I said, we hope that you suffer a little bit more for it.
Oh, I'm all for it. Listen, we sent them off on the first playoff game. Our girls all wrote letters for every one of their kids and got them a good goodie basket. And so, I'm all for it. I just think that just like with football, when they start off good, it really builds a good culture within your school. And so I think that having that immediate success right out the gate for both football and volleyball just kind of sets everything up for success. So I wish them nothing but the best, and I just hope that run continues for sure.
And a reminder that both Donny and Brian will be joining me on this weekly podcast here at Blue Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks. Whenever the football season ends, again, we're hoping that's going to actually see you two probably more in January than anything else, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway, we're wishing you guys the best of luck. And remember, you're combined 3-0 between the two programs, so we're expecting undefeated seasons to continue and then appearances in the state championship. And then if that doesn't happen, well, then we'll just have another discussion about that afterwards.
Absolutely.
But Brian and Donny, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
And we want to thank you, too, for joining us here on the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. Reminder that share this podcast with whoever you come into contact with. It usually gets posted on Tuesday afternoons following the recording of this on Monday nights. And then we will be back next week with another edition of the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. We will review the Bearcats playoff game, the opener against Saginaw Chisholm Trail, and hopefully looking ahead to their second round or their area playoff game against either against El Paso Parkland or Abilene High. So for everybody here, I'm Kevin Lonnquist for the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. We'll see you all next week. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, with Bearcats head coach Robby Jones and the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist. Please like and subscribe to this podcast and tell a friend. You're also welcome to join us every Monday night at 7 from Blue Rays of New Orleans in Hudson Oaks. And then listen to every Aledo Bearcats game, home and away, live on Real Country 92.1 Hank FM, on the free 92.1 Hank FM app, or online at 921hankfm.com.